Hello everybody, welcome. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. Sorry if I was not announcing what was happening as we were live. Right now we're here at the aftermath of the police and the park police clearing out, as well as the Minneapolis Public Works, clearing out an encampment of houseless folks that has been here on the east side of the Powderhorn Park for over a month now. These are officers as well as park police. They just cleared this side of the camp. In Minneapolis, there's been a order to allow the Minneapolis parks to become sanctuary places for houseless folks. But the Minneapolis parks, as you see, this person is from the park police, and he's going to get his vehicle that is parked right there. We're here on 13th Ave. It's like 33rd Street, 14th Ave, excuse me. And about 2-3 hours ago, the Minneapolis Police came to enact an eviction order of the Powderhorn Park, of the houseless encampments here in Powderhorn. There is a ruling to only allow 25 tents in each park, excuse me. And so these officers came to carry out that eviction. This is the aftermath, as I was just saying. There is about a dozen arrests or so, possibly give or take some. Those arrested were arrested for stopping, or not stopping, sitting in their tents, continuing to stay in their tents even after the eviction order, and essentially resisting or obstructing is what the police said. And so they'll be charged with small misdemeanors, most likely. They might have their charges dropped eventually. If people were lucky enough to be here during the time of the eviction order, thank you. They were given 1 hour. That 1 hour was supposedly efficient enough to allow them to gather their belongings. So there goes some people packing some of the belongings into some vehicles. A lot of people had their belongings thrown away. You can see some of the remnants of where the tents were sitting in the grass. And so this was a pretty large encampment, a few hundred people. And on the other side of the park, that encampment still sits. From my understanding, it hasn't been touched by the police yet. There's quite a few tents over there. I do not have the details specifically on why that tent encampment has stayed up comparatively to this one. We spoke to a few of the people that were affected by this a little bit ago. Hey, what's up?
I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Everything you do. I've been following every single live stream that you're out doing, and it's been really nice being updated on the shit that's going on.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
I'm Nico.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I'm Kia.
Kia, good to meet you.
Yeah.
Would you want to say anything? I'm live right now.
Oh,
You want to?
I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
You can introduce yourself, and I don't know how much you know about this, but what happened out here?
Yeah, hey y'all. So my name is, I can put this down. My name is Kia, and I'm a Powderhorn resident. So this is the west, one of the encampments. And they decided to just forcibly remove people, give them several hours notice. There were by the time I arrived here, there were 2 tents left, and the people inside said they weren't going to leave. And they shouldn't have to leave, but the people who the city contracted with and the police said they have to move, and they said they were going to start arresting people, forcibly removing them, and they just were taking people out like rag dolls. Over a dozen people were arrested for protecting people's homes, even though they're not homes, because the city doesn't give them homes. And then they just bulldozed over all of their stuff, all of their belongings. And so now they're telling people to go to Logan Park in Northeast, but that will most likely be taken over again within 72 hours. So where are people supposed to go? It's ridiculous, it's disgusting, it's ugly, and we need to hold our elected officials accountable, because this shit is fucked up. And yeah, I guess that's all.
So the authorities were telling the houseless folks to go to Logan Square over Northeast. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the police specifically that were telling them to go to the Logan Park, but someone was telling people that's the next spot to go.
Okay.
But now that's going to get taken over again. So we're in this cycle again. And I found out that the company that the city hired to come and bulldoze everything, they paid $300,000 to do so, a $300,000 contract. So if they go and take another encampment down, I'm assuming that's going to be another $300,000. What if we took that money and addressed the issue at the root, which is abolishing the police and ending homelessness, instead of paying companies to come and bulldoze people out of their homes? Doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. I'm sick and tired of it, and I feel a lot of privilege because I have a home, I have a place to live, but seeing all these people out here and human rights violations just throwing out the window, it doesn't make sense.
Can you talk about real quick what it's like? So you're a Powderhorn resident, you said?
Yes.
And first of all, actually, I want to ask you the company's name, and then second of all, as a Powderhorn resident, what has it been like this last couple months?
Yeah.
Since the George Floyd uprising, and then also since the encampment started.
Yeah, so I don't know the company's name, and I didn't see it on any of their dumpster trucks or anything, but they seemed like everyday people that were just going to bulldoze. So yeah, I've been living in Powderhorn for about a year now. I love it. I love the diversity of the neighborhood, and I mean that as in like skin tone and abilities and just age, everything in between. It's amazing. But since the George Floyd uprising, I've noticed a shift in living here, but it's been positive, I would say, is the community has really come together to make a change, and that's what we need. We need mutual aid and everyone sticking up for each other. It's frustrating seeing people on Nextdoor, for example, that aren't actually out in the community but hear things going on and blame it on protesters and people who have a right to be angry. They're justified in how they feel, and neighbors, specifically our white neighbors, they don't get it. And as a woman of color, I don't even have the words to describe how I feel, honestly, a lot of the time, because this continues to happen and it wears you down. But I don't want this to happen to any more people, so I have to stand up and fight. But I love being a part of this neighborhood, and I'm going to continue to stand up for everyone that is a part of it, no matter what.
Thank you. Real quick, to bounce off of that,
yeah.
Powderhorn is now sort of like an example of a neighborhood that's sort of policing itself, if you want to say. With, maybe let's not talk about the charter specifically, but just the movement in general to abolish or defund the police. What are some alternatives that you've seen that could be viable? Oh my God. I mean, I think we've had just texting groups. We've had these amazing, comprehensive, extremely detailed Google sheet pages where everyone has said their skills and what they can provide to the community, and people have gone on there and called upon those people to access those resources. We've become more connected as a neighborhood. I know my neighbors now. Before I didn't know who they were. Now I actually know my neighbors, and I can call upon them for anything that I might need. And I've seen that just throughout the entire community. We are checking in with each other. We're asking people for what they need and making sure they get that. And that's more than we ever had before from any elected official and any police. So I would say we would be okay if it wasn't for this stupid shit. Yeah, if I'm being honest. Anything else you'd want to say? And now the West Side encampment is still there. Yeah. Powderhorn neighborhood still has this. Where do people go from here, or anything else you'd want to say? Where do people go from here? I don't know, because I listened to the city council meeting last Wednesday when they decided to for sure make a decision on 25 tents at the encampments and everything. They never mentioned anything about forcibly removing people from this side. So it feels gross and disgusting to not even prepare people for that. But what's going to happen there, we have 25 tents that, I don't know, there's probably over hundreds of tents there, have to be reduced down to 25. That includes supply tents. That includes if someone has their personal tent they sleep in, and then their tent that they have their belongings in. All amounts to 25 tents. That doesn't make any sense.
and they want people to apply for permits, but the organizers who apply for permits are liable for anything that goes wrong. And that was a direct question that was asked by a city council member to another city council member, and they said, yeah, they're held liable. So no one's going to apply for a permit. And where do we go from here? We just have to come together as a community, which I think we're doing. So continue to do what we're doing. We have to connect with the people closest to us and let them know about the human rights violations that are going on. It starts with the people closest to us. That's where change happens. When we connect with those people closest to us, let us know about these issues, we rally them, and then we have a larger movement. So we have to continue to do that, and we have to continue to educate ourselves and be willing to change and move with the movement. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time and the love. Appreciate the nice, kind words.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
All right, Kia. Hey, what's up? How you doing?
You know Mari?
Yeah.
And I met you with Brad a couple of weeks ago, somewhere along the way.
Okay.
I'm Daniel. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Merrick live streamed the whole thing, so we saw everything.
Oh, okay. Do you want to talk at all? Okay.
Yeah, I can tell you what I saw here.
You can hold this if you want.
Yeah.
I'll hold it.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so I arrived a little over an hour ago, and MIRAC, Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee, we live streamed everything we saw. Got here right before the arrests were made. Over there was a line of police cars, and then there were 2 tents here, and around 12 people right behind the big tree were standing in front of both of the tents, and there were around 4 or 5 people in both of the tents, and there was a line of police standing right there, and then over in this area there was a line of police trying to push back the crowd of people watching. And things got really intense. The crowd moved in to watch the arrest. The arrestees said they wanted people filming everything, so people tried to move in. Some people tried to get their stuff back still, because not everyone had gotten their stuff out. And then they gave, I don't know if it was a dispersal warning, but then they immediately just walked up and started arresting people. They got around 12 people in the cars pretty fast, and then they went in for the people inside the tents, and they had about 4 or 5 people go into the tents to get the people in the tents. In the first tent, they got out, they had a bit of a struggle, and one guy came out zip tied behind his back, and they carried him out all the way to the car line. And then there was another person in that tent who they walked out. Then they went into the other tent, and we got a little closer to see. You couldn't see in the tent, but we saw through a little bit of a window. So there were 2 people in that tent. One person went out. Neither of them went out very without a struggle. One person was kind of taken out, and they walked out and handcuffed them out. And then for the other person, there was definitely a struggle between the 2 police officers who went in there and the person inside. And the person inside, you could see the tent was moving a lot, and there was a struggle there, and then you could see the 2 police officers like leaning down on them. So it looked like the 2 police officers were leaning down on the person as they were zip tying them. That's what we could see through the window of the tent. And then they got that person standing up, and then they walked them out to the cars. And then immediately after that, they brought in 2 privately owned dump trucks, not Minneapolis trash trucks, and a privately owned bulldozer, a little bobcat. And they immediately started having people throw all of their stuff into the dump trucks. They threw everything in there. They took all of their stuff, and then the dump truck came and just rolled over the entire tent, rolled over everything, and dragged everything into the dump truck. I was so upset, and everyone was so upset. Everyone on the line over here had pushed in at that point. They were really upset. There was a lot of talk between protesters and police, and things got a little intense. I think they arrested 1 person from the crowd. and people started yelling and they got really mad. So then the police moved in really quick and pushed everyone back to the sidewalk. And that was a lot of the altercation. Since then, it was just a little bit of interaction between police and protesters on the line here. For a while, they weren't letting people into the park, and then one of the organizers got word that if we cleaned the park, then they would let the arrestees go, but then they wouldn't allow her into the park to clean. So then it was another altercation. A lot of people got mad that they wouldn't let them back into the park. There was a question of why would you, if it's an empty park now, why can't people go inside it? So then there was a lot of altercations, and eventually the police pulled out and pushed back, and they've all gone since then. That was like, I think 20 minutes ago the police left. Yeah.
So you watched it all. Where can people watch it as well? You said you were live streaming on Mirac?
Yeah, that's Mirac's Facebook page. We're just Mirac MN on Facebook. We have the whole thing live streamed. I think we got over an hour of everything. We saw a lot of it go down up close. They chased a man. They tried to tase a guy. He ran off. We got a lot of it on film. Yeah, it was a really intense situation.
Thank you for that update. What do you think is the future for the West encampment?
I don't know. Apparently they were telling people not to go to the West encampment, as like, don't move there instead. When they came here a few hours ago, they said, get out, take your stuff. But they didn't say go to the West encampment, but the West encampment's still there. I assume they're going to move it at some point soon. I think they were telling people to go to another park. However, that park has also been told that they're supposed to leave too, so it sounds like they're just shuffling people around the city. Yeah.
Dealing with, you work with Mirac, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about just like the struggles the immigrants are facing around homelessness, and also some undocumented folks, and how that really affects and impacts people? Yeah,
a lot of people haven't had access to any assistance. These are people who pay taxes, who work in the cities, who are working essential jobs. A large amount of immigrants are working as nurses, as custodians, and they're working without, in most cases, health insurance. So if they do get sick from the pandemic, they will not have health insurance or a place to go or reliably get tested. We've been working with Mirac to provide gift cards for groceries. So we've given out thousands of dollars in gift cards to families in the surrounding areas. And there haven't been a lot of government opportunities for assistance. The city of Minneapolis allowed a small grant program that had a 2-week opening to apply for those grants, which is not a large amount of time, especially when a lot of people don't know about government services. That's not a lot amount of time to get and do all of that paperwork. So people haven't had a lot of government support in the area when it comes to housing or really any assistance during the pandemic at all.
Thank you for that. I guess, what do you think is maybe some viable next steps forward for addressing houselessness in the city?
I think we need to stop allowing condo companies and large development companies into our city, and to build these developments that are outpricing homes in the city. The affordable housing that is in the city is not necessarily very affordable. I know I'm an artist, so that I consider looking at the AML lofts, which are affordable artist housing by the river. You have to make $40,000 a year to live there as an artist. So what some people consider affordable housing is not what other people consider affordable housing. By Midtown Global Market across the street, they just built a new development over there. They're selling studios for over $1,000. We need really affordable housing, and we need temporary housing for the homeless people right now, and not something that you need to apply for or to fill out paperwork for or provide IDs for. A lot of homeless programs, they also make you do a lot of paperwork, and you need to have a home address on the paperwork, which is counterintuitive to being homeless. So we need just transparent, easy ways for people to get housing. And there are empty apartment buildings all over Minneapolis. There are empty apartment buildings in Uptown. They're just approved a new condo across from the Y in Uptown. All of these incredibly expensive new apartment buildings that are going up in the city, people aren't moving into them. Most of them are still half empty. There are homes for people to live in the city. They are not available or affordable for people. We need homes available right now. And I mean, if we can't get anything more permanent, there are empty hotel rooms all across the city. We just need to start moving people into housing now to protect them from the elements as well as the pandemic that is still really hurting people.
Thank you. Anything else you'd want to say?
Not me, Daniel.
So there are some other policy recommendations that we've been urging every level of government, from the city of Minneapolis to the county of Hennepin, the county of Ramsey, the city of St. Paul, and including the governor, to take, that would provide significant protection for immigrants, including those immigrants who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. First of all, we urge every elected representative at every level of government who has any sense of moral responsibility to the residents of the city of Minneapolis, but especially to the undocumented, to do everything in their power to stop collaboration with ICE. We have seen what's happening with Customs and Border Patrol and ICE agents kidnapping people off the streets of Portland. The president has threatened to bring those stormtrooper forces into the city of Denver. The president has promised to make those kinds of enforcement actions in every location that has determined themselves to be a sanctuary city, county, or state, and he's now following through. And here in Minneapolis, in the county of Hennepin, in Ramsey, in St. Paul, in Minnesota, we urge each of those levels of government to stop collaborating with ICE. In the first half of 2019 alone, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office turned more than 500 Hennepin County residents over to ICE, more than 500. That's just in the first half of the of 2019. Governor Walz campaigned on making Minnesota a sanctuary state. He's done absolutely nothing to implement that policy. We just, in the last couple of days, we gave him sanctuary state language. People have been writing and calling the governor to make Minnesota a sanctuary state. If the legislature won't pass it, he can do it by executive order, and he should do that now, especially now. And in the city of Minneapolis and the city of St. Paul, they collaborate with ICE by way of something called a JAG grant, a Justice Assistance Grant, that requires them to collaborate with ICE along with the county boards. They should stop those grants. They should stop accepting that blood money. The DFL in Minnesota has also been a huge disappointment. Knowing that immigrants are under attack from the federal government, that the president has made immigrants and refugees, he's really put them at the center of his targeting, his racist policies. In the 2020 legislative session, the DFL couldn't even muster the courage to even mention the word immigrant or refugee in their state legislative priorities. That's a travesty. It's a travesty. And so we urge everyone in Minnesota, every person who has any sense of moral responsibility, every person of faith, every person in the public, to continue to pressure every level of government to protect immigrants and refugees. We stand together with the Black Lives Matter movement, and every single person in the state of Minnesota should be banding together to protect all immigrants and refugees. Black Lives Matter, immigrants' lives matter, and we should stop militarizing all of our cities. The proposed amendment at City Council is unworkable. It's toothless. There should be a Citizens Accountability Council, as proposed by many Black Lives Matter-led movements here. There are so many things that citizens can and should do, and we support those moves to protect every single resident of this city and of this state.
Thank you. Anything else you'd want to say on that?
All good. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
My name is Nico.
Daniel.
Daniel.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. What's up?
I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Trying
I'm
to
Nico.
stream as much as I can. I
Oh,
really
cool.
appreciate it. I know a bunch of people around the country who watch.
Nice. Super dope. Nice shirt.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. How you doing? I'm Nico.
Rakea.
Raquel. You want to talk about what happened up here at all?
I can.
Yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
You want to hold the mic or you want me to hold it?
Oh, I can hold it.
You okay being on camera?
Yep.
We're live right now.
Oh,
Okay.
perfect.
Cool.
All right. So,
Yeah, you can introduce yourself and sort of just talk.
right. Okay. So, I'm Rakea Jordan. Really, honestly, I didn't even know about anything that was going on. I come from the south suburbs, like Apple Valley, and you don't see stuff like this, you know, like, and so coming out to St. Paul and even seeing on sides of highways just tents and things like that, and then just knowing that people are losing their livelihoods, like this is their home, these are the only things that they own, and you're just gonna kick them out for what? Like, who are they really bothering? That's what I just don't understand, and I don't understand why they can build all these things and put money into all these things, but they can't build homes for people that need them. Like, it just makes no sense to me at all. And it is experience out all of this is like a whole different perspective, because we literally just witnessed them take bulldozers to people's tents and put them in dumpsters and just drive away like it was nothing, like they just did not care. And the police just really didn't, they just don't care. You could see it clear as day that just even the way that they interact with the people that are over here trying to help, you know, like, you're gonna keep us from cleaning up a public park, like, who? I just don't understand. Like, it's not justice, period. Like, you know, so it's really frustrating to even see like the patches of where people were living, you know, and now it's just not there. And these patches are so big. Do you know how much a tent that big costs? Where do they think that these people are gonna get another tent? You know, and it's just, we as human beings should be more decent. We should help each other and not tear each other down. There's no reason for any of that. It's disgusting, to say the least, you know, to just know that somebody just doesn't care about how you're living. And these people get to go back home to their lavish homes. So could you imagine, like, literally, what if you were just living and somebody just came and carried you out your house and lit your house on fire? How would you feel about that? Would you be smiling if it happened to you? You know, so it's just super frustrating that it just seems like the ones that are supposed to care don't, you know, and that there's just so much more that we can do to help one another. So it's very, just, I'm speechless. I'm at a loss of words for how this whole day went. I didn't wake up expecting to experience something like this. And I'm really glad that I did come out, because this is a community, this is a group, this is a family. And at the end of the day, we all bleed red, and we're supposed to make sure we're all good and healthy and living and not being depressed and getting suicidal. And like, our mental health is something that is a huge thing, and nobody cares about mental health issues. And it's like, what do you think that these people are going through every day? You know, like, you can't just sit here and expect somebody to just be right in their mind the whole entire time. And some people, yeah, they choose to live this way. And honestly, I have the utmost respect for that, because I know that I could not. But it's like, how are you going to just come and disrupt a whole community? Just take them out of where they're living, where they were comfortable, where they were fine being at. You know, I don't know what the issue was. I don't understand why they're trying to have people sign a park permit or whatever and lose their civil rights. Come on now. How does that even sound? Nobody wants to do anything like that. This is not back 40, 50, 60 years ago. We're not slaves. We're not going through. You can't control us. And now the cops are just wolves in sheep clothing. You know, they think that they're following something good, but they're blindly following the wrong things. It's literally just mind-boggling, because what? Who are you to say that they can't be here? This is a public park, and this land isn't even the white man's land. Like, let's be real. You know, they don't own this. They shouldn't even be able to kick anybody out of here. So it's literally something that I wish wasn't happening, but at the same time, it's like opening everybody's eyes to really the way that this world is. Like, on top of everything that's already showing us what the world is. Like, we're dealing with some racism at the same time, you know, like police brutality. So then we have to be sitting in the face of the police while they're just over here trying to tell us where we can and cannot go. Like, no, this is supposed to be the land of the free. This is supposed to be America. Come on now. Like, people come here for a free life, and you're just taking that away from them. And it's just not right. At the end of the day, if anybody knows, it's just not a good move. So.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question?
Oh, yep.
So we still have that the encampment on the west side of the park.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm zooming in on it now, some of the tents. What do you hope for the future of just houseless issues in general? You talked a lot about, you know, like folks are sort of stuck, you know, but also now they're being told where they can and where they cannot go. A lot of houseless folks have been dealing with that for a long time, but then they had some respite, like they were able to have a sanctuary in the parks. But now that's taken away.
Yes.
What do you hope for the future?
I just hope that there could be more acceptance, and just accepting the fact that there are people that don't live like us. You know, like that they don't live like the middle class citizen. You know, and even having that encampment over there, they signed the treaty, I guess, or whatever, the permit, and so now they can be there. But if they're liable for everything that's going on over there, like, that's not fair for them to just live. Now, you can't build them a house and then have them be liable for their own apartment, their own unit, their own whatever. Like, come on now. It just doesn't have to be that difficult. And I just hope that that it's seen, like, that all of this is seen for what it is, and it's gross. And there needs to be change. There needs to be things put in place for people to actually have the opportunity to grow. You know, you can't just be taking everybody's everything, you know, like, come on now. It's just frustrating, to say the least, to just know that this is what people are going through. You know, like when I'm over here living in my apartment in Egan, you know, and then there's just people over here that are literally losing all their stuff. That's not fair, and we shouldn't even be living in a world that is like that. Everybody should really be treated equally and taken seriously. Like, if I want to pitch a tent in a park, I'm going to pitch a tent in a park, and I'll stay there as long as I want. I'm not bothering anybody. So why can't there be 25 people over here doing the same thing? That's their own community. It's like somebody buying a cul-de-sac and putting their houses next to their friends. So it's just, I just hope that there is actual positive change that comes from all the destruction and all the evil in this world, because it's just unnecessary. And at the end of the day, everybody's got to answer to the man upstairs. So if you're sitting here come on now, he's going to see y'all come to that gate, and he's going to be like, all right, sayonara, bud. Like, you're not about to be up in here if you can't even treat my other people the way that they're supposed to be treated, like the way that they're intended. So I just don't understand how it seems so easy for them to just be over here and, like, pulling people out of their tent by their arms and legs. You're just going to drag a homeboy out of his tent, sleep probably, you know, and then you're going to threaten to just pick them up in a bulldozer in their tent. Like, do you even hear yourself speak, or do you even know what you're even talking about? So I literally just don't even understand the mindset of anybody that has the power, has the platform, has the ability to make change, and they're not. There's no reason that people should not have a roof over their head. Come on, in Minnesota, there's so much land, there's so many. I go to my mom's house and they're literally, the houses are popping up like weeds. Man, why can't you just build something that's going to house the homeless? And then there's the misconceptions of, are they doing drugs? Are they doing, like, everybody wants to sit here and say because you're homeless, you're obviously doing some stuff that you shouldn't be doing, you know? And it's like, that's not the case. Some people just are really just living. And so let them live their best life. You only get one. Why make it hard on them? So at the end of the day, I just need to see something happen. Like, I will literally be out here all day, every day if I have to be, because this is a disgrace. There's no reason for it at all. So that's...
Thank you. Anything else you want to say?
No, I'm probably not for the camera.
All right. Thank you. It's good to meet you. My name is Nico.
Rakea. Yeah. Thanks, man.
I'll give you one of our cards. What time did you get out here, Nico? 45 minutes ago, hour ago.
The police still arresting people when you got here?
No, I missed the arrest. Can I follow you and watch you clean up a little bit? So we're here again, Powderhorn Park, the East encampment in Powderhorn Park. Police came and evicted this area. Here's a hand washing station. Police came and evicted this area a few hours back. You can see the divots in the sky, or in the sky as I look up. I say sky, in the ground. All these spots where grass was growing green that have turned discoloration were tents, and these spaces were tents where people were living for over the last month. There was over 400 people camping out here on Powderhorn Park. There's an encampment still on the other side of the park, as you can see in the distance.
I don't know if you want to keep this focused on over here, but I live over by the memorial, and if you want to hear about what's been going on down there, like stop here.
Yeah, for sure. You want to say something now?
Yeah, I prefer to stay out.
Okay, yep. So we're going to hear from a resident this nearby George Floyd Square.
Yeah, so I live down on Elliott, and obviously the memorial's right there, and we've been having a lot of issues with gun violence. I'm sure you've probably heard about that, some of that. There was a lady who was shot on the corner of my street. Was that last week Thursday, I think? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know how much you know, but we've while the cops were there, like collecting the vehicle, they were just telling us like that this is a no-go zone, and like some people have called because we've had shootings nightly. And yeah, they like just don't show up, unless there's a body to collect, which, like part of it is we don't want them down there, but also, when they do, they're just there harassing people, and they don't actually, they're not actually doing anything. And yeah, so just, frustration with that. Like on my street, it was on my side of the street, right in front of my neighbor's house, there was somebody shot out a car window, and I could see the car from my bedroom window. And yeah, it's just, that they're too chicken to go down there when, to do their job of preventing, gun violence. Oh. Did you catch the drone that was in the sky?
I think it was a medium drone.
Oh, okay. But yeah, and then so they say that they won't come down there because it's too unsafe, but they'll come here and bulldoze a houseless encampment.
Yeah, it's not too far. We're only 8 to 10 blocks away. Huh?
Not even. It's like maybe like 4 or 5. Like I guess from the other corner, but yeah, it's not that far. And like the other night I was out on cop watch, and we had a cop car come up to the end of the block, and then as soon as he saw us, put it in reverse and hightail it out of there, reverse down the entire street. It's just, what do you do?
Yeah, you want to talk about just the community itself? A lot of changes have happened, but we can briefly just say like where is it at right now in the square?
It's not as like heavily traveled as it once was, but it's once you're in the square, it's a pretty comfortable place to be still, and still very obviously a place to pay respects, and but yeah, just it's frustrating to have that great space there, but then have drive-by shootings all night long for the past month and a half, 2 months. You know, trying to keep that place peaceful, but you know, what can we do as a community? You know, I was out on the front steps of my house and I got shot at from, you know, it just, you know, bullets flew through and, you know, came towards me. You know, we're doing our best to organize as, like, you know, as a block, and, you know, and not be policing, but keeping an eye out, being able to help everybody who lives there, you know.
Anything else you want to say?
Not unless you got any other questions.
Appreciate the update. Yeah, thank you. Thank you again. Okay. Again, we're here live on the south side of Minneapolis. Powderhorn Park, where they just evicted a houseless encampment. It was here at the park.
For this issue, because it's been able to be brushed to the side and invisible to all of us for so long. And,
can I film you?
Yeah.
Okay. Keep talking. Sorry.
So yeah, because it's been invisible to so many of us for so long, because it's always been swept to the side, and this has really brought it central to the neighborhoods and the encampments that exist throughout the city now in Lindale Farmstead and Brackett Park and Kenwood and all over. There are a lot of sheltered residents who are becoming galvanized to support, you know, the needs of unsheltered individuals in the city and really fight for it. So I hope that in the absence of this huge story, quote unquote, here, that the fight continues and that sheltered residents in the city continue to elevate the voices of the needs of unsheltered people.
Well, I mean, most camp is still like moved over there, so that's good to have that. But do you know if they're gonna, like, what their plan is? Are they just gonna clear this, or are they planning to move? Try to clear that?
We don't know what their plan is. We know that the park board has issued a decision that they're saying 20 city parks. There can be 20 camps and 20 city parks with 25 tents maximum, and that's all they're going to allow for now. So what that means for the West Camp at the moment, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens there in the next couple of days. But 20 camps, 25 tents, A, doesn't serve everybody, and B, isn't a solution. It's short term, and we need to be like figuring out what the medium and long term solutions are now, and we need the city and the state to step up and start having conversations about it.
Yeah. So 25 tents and 20 cities, that's only 50 tents. Wait,
20 tents and 25, that's what?
Never mind.
Four.
I'm thinking 400?
Yeah.
400.
Something like
Sorry,
that, whatever
didn't
the math
know.
is. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's, you know, my hope is that sheltered community members will continue to push and elevate the voices of those who have not been listened to for forever, for so long, you know, and really push for this to continue, because people keep saying, you know, what happens in winter, but tents aren't a solution ever. You know, we have we need to be helping meet humanitarian needs on the ground now, and tents and all of the volunteer systems and food supply and water systems have been helping people kind of just have their basic needs met.
Yeah.
But that's not the solution, and there's nobody. We need the governor to step up and start having conversations publicly about this issue and working actively towards a solution.
Well, I know they said we're facing 28 million more people homeless by November.
Yeah.
So that's a percentage of the country.
Yeah.
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 There's plenty of unoccupied buildings around here. That's where my first thought goes.
There's a lot of property. There are a lot of empty lots. There are a lot of empty buildings. There are initiatives that are being introduced, like tiny home initiatives, that if the funding and the political will is there to push them through, then we can actually be working towards, you know, housing first solutions, trauma-informed and culturally informed solutions, wraparound services, and really meeting people where they're at and where their needs are at, so that we can help people get on their feet and then move forward. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to tell the story of some of the people too.
Yeah,
Again.
shoot me a text.
I did.
Okay,
Say my
cool.
name
I'll
and,
say when my phone is on. Thank you.
Oh, hey, I'll let you finish your conversation, but I'd like to talk to you a little bit.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. We're gonna talk to that person in a little second. I'm gonna give you a brief, quick update and let them finish their discussion real quick. Powderhorn Park, again. So during coronavirus, there was not any kind of support for houseless folks in Minneapolis. We're supposedly a progressive haven. I think Hennepin County Commissioner Angela Conley, I think the first black woman Hennepin County Commissioner, fought hard, from my understanding, to get some kind of support for houseless folks. That support looked like getting them into hotels, and those hotels allowed for people to live corona-free for a while. The George Floyd uprising happened, and there was still a lot of folks on the streets. Then there was a curfew. That curfew made it impossible for houseless folks to safely be on the streets because of the police force and the police's apprehension towards treating houseless folks with care. So anarchists and other folks commandeered the Sheraton Hotel, which can be seen at this building right here is the Midtown building, and in the bottom of that is like housing. But right next to that is, as well as the Midtown Global Market, but right next to that is the Sheraton, and the Sheraton's a pretty newer hotel that was built, that was commandeered and housed quite a few hundreds of houseless folks. Within that situation during the uprising and after the uprising, the hotel was evicted by police forces and the authorities. And after the hotel got evicted, folks took up different parks. One of the big parks that they took in Campton was this one, Powderhorn Park. This is the west side encampment that you were looking at on the west side of Powderhorn Park. We're standing in the east side encampment, where the east side encampment was. We're at the edge of it. You can see some of the grass is sort of taken out right there. Some of the divots in the grass were where tents were, okay? These tents had formed a whole local community of houseless folks. There was hundreds of folks up here. They were evicted today. The city council had approved Minneapolis parks to be sanctuaries for houseless folks, meaning that houseless folks could live in a tent in a sanctuary park, any Minneapolis park. So that got sort of overruled by the Minneapolis Park Board, who then made the decision to only allow 25 tents within each park. We just heard a person talk about 25 tents per 20 parks. That happened real recently, last week. That eviction order was carried out today in the afternoon. The police gave people 1 to a few hours to clear their stuff. When we were arriving, when we were arriving, we saw the Minneapolis Police leave, as well as the garbage truck, one of the garbage trucks. From what we hear is that there was a multitude of garbage trucks that were used, maybe 2 or 3, and possibly they were hired by other companies. I did see Minneapolis Public Works leaving. I figured that they were a part of the operation. I'm not sure the status of the other companies being part of the situation, but that's what we've heard. So adding that up, we got up here after the last tents were taken down, after the police had evicted everybody. This is where the tents were. We heard multitude of stories. Person Maria, right there on the left side, they filmed everything that happened on MIRAC, M-I-R-A-C, Facebook page. From my understanding, they filmed, it's Minnesota Immigrants Rights Action Committee or Coalition or something. That group filmed what happened. If you wanted to see what happened, I'm sure there was other independent journalists and organizers and possibly protesters around filming as well. So real quickly, that is what happened up here. We heard from a multitude of people that were also houseless and affected by this before the stream went live. They were talking about being brutalized by the police pulling them out of tents and arresting some folks. There was at least, I believe, around, well, I should just say around, there was estimated to be around a dozen arrests up here of sort of houseless defenders as well as possible houseless folks. When we were arriving, we did hear from a gentleman who was walking up to the situation saying that he just left for a minute to go to the bathroom. Well, it must have been a little longer than a minute, but he went for to go to the bathroom, walked around the block after that, came back, and all his belongings were gone. You see somebody breaking down some material. We saw a bunch of people's belongings that were sort of brought across the street when we came up here. You see these trash bins. Some of the trash bins were also used, but the Minneapolis city did not use those trash bins. They used Bobcat, from my understanding, as well as their own garbage truck, Minneapolis City garbage truck, and possibly another one. So that is the update from here. We're going to talk to one other person and probably bring the stream down. Again, there's multitude of encampments around the city, and Brackett Park has a women's camp. They've recently kicked out one of the people who's allegedly a pedophile, and they kicked them out successfully. So people have created their own communities out here and created their own sort of mutual aid society to where everybody can sort of get along and provide each other with all the needs needed, from food to clothing to medical care to health care. Those things have been taken care of out here by the people. The people have come to create those avenues of support. And so, again, here is some of the further away tents. There was a ton of volunteer efforts that have gone into this park. So while you're picking up, can I steal you a couple minutes?
Yeah, and I'm actually thinking, would you be interested in chatting with Alex over here? He might
Totally.
Yeah, in a minute.
Totally.
Since you already got me.
Is this Alex with the garbage picker?
Yeah.
All right. Yep. I can introduce myself if you want to go back.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah,
What's your name?
I'm happy to talk again. I'm Danielle.
Danielle. All right. I'm Nico.
Nico, nice to meet
Thank you. All right. I'll wait till Alex is in the convo. Are you Alex?
That's Alex.
Alex. How you doing? I'm Nico.
Steve.
When you're done with this convo, can I steal you for a couple minutes? If you'd be okay to do an interview?
I'll come talk.
Okay, word. Sick.
It was good talking to you guys. Glad you found your regards. Talking about Scott.
Okay. You can hold the mic, or I can hold it, however you feel best. Sure. Can you talk about, so you can just introduce yourself if you want, however you want to do that. But essentially the topic is what's happened here today, and where we go from here. Where do the people who supported and everything else who are living out here, where do they go? So just real quick, yeah, like, can you give an introduction and sort of what happened today?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Alex Richardson. I'm a neighbor around here. I live in the Powderhorn neighborhood, and I have since the day I was born 25 years ago. And so what happened today was the East Sanctuary encampment here at Powderhorn Park was served notice on Friday that they had 72 hours to vacate. It was the same notice that they were served about a month ago over on the west side. And at that time on the west side, the neighbors, they stood up and they said, no, we're not going to allow the park police to come and evict these people that are seeking sanctuary. And this time they, and so the events of the last month have unfolded as the park sanctuary movement has grown, things have evolved quickly. But what happened here today was the notice that was served was followed through on by the county, the city, the park board, park police, and then all the third-party companies that were assisting with facilities. So yeah, there have been concerted efforts to get people out since notice has been served and get them to other safe locations, whether it be other parks, hotels, shelters, or wherever else they might have the wherewithal to go. And so thankfully the numbers here were more limited than they could have been when it came to forcible removal. Some people today did go willingly to other sanctuaries, and there were those who chose to stay. And those people were forcibly removed. The police dragged them out by hands and feet. The tents were picked up and hauled away by bulldozers and front loaders. And the belongings of a number of residents were taken, and as far as I know, not returned or destroyed or thrown away. And so we understand that everybody in the situation, everybody involved, does not have the answer. But I don't think that this was the answer. I don't think anybody believes this was the answer, and I think that both can exist at the same time. I think that we can, be at a loss for how to really tackle this right now, but we can also be moving in the right direction, both with, our mitigations of danger right now and also our planning going forward. And so right now we feel like the volunteers, the residents of the sanctuaries, the neighbors involved, anybody who's, given any effort to this, who isn't involved in any sort of governmental structure, they're really giving their all. Whether it be people committing to helping make these spaces safe, people committing to providing supplies, people committing to finding them resources. All of those people have been doing their utmost, and as far as we can tell, government has been doing the absolute minimum, if not nothing at all. Not to say that the park board hasn't been instrumental in helping us with some things, but we realize that is, ultimately this doesn't fall to them. It should never have been up to the park board to try and mitigate the harm coming to people who have been displaced. This is something that, falls on the shoulders of the city, of the county, of the state of Minnesota, and frankly, those leaders have been nowhere to be found. And it's pretty disgusting to see that they would allow this to happen for a month, and then have this be their only response to forcibly evict people. We knew that the situation was dangerous here, and we never wanted it to be any sort of solution. And right now, it's being treated, as the only thing that was possible for the last month, and now the forcible eviction is the only solution to an unsafe situation, is to put people into more unsafe situations and further traumatize them and further displace them. And so, we've been doing all that we can, and the government, who actually does have the resources and the ability and the responsibility, they've really, 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 really fallen short, and that is the understatement of the year.
All right, thank you for that synopsis. You talked about the community sort of coming together here, what I saw as well. Can you talk about the different facets? So we had it was like an autonomous city that developed outside in a park sanctuary, right? And so, Can you talk about just the different facets? Was there a kitchen? Was there a medical aid? Like, how did all that, and I know there's security, how did all those different facets get along, and how was it organized?
So when the encampment originally arrived, the sanctuary encampment originally arrived on the west side. They came over with some volunteers who had been involved in the sanctuary occupancy of the Sheraton Hotel on Lake Street after they had been displaced from another area down East Lake Street following the riots that were following the murder of George Floyd. And so there had been volunteers that had been working with them through a few steps leading up to their arrival on Powderhorn. So they had learned some things. They had kind of realized, okay, what are the supplies that we need on the ground? What are the things that, people in the situation that they're in right now are going to need from us as volunteers? Like, what can we give, basically? And so there were medic tents, there were supply drop-off tents, there were food storage tents, there were dry storage tents. We did our utmost to get facilities places as soon as we could, and so that was kind of how the infrastructure grew. It was through volunteer efforts and through outreach to the community to try and get as many people involved as possible, to get shifts covered for manning the food tent, manning the medic tent, being able to facilitate and organize supplies. The residents themselves of the sanctuary, of the parks, they were instrumental in all of that as well, in terms of communicating their needs, but also, helping hand in parcel with, or hand in hand with the volunteers themselves. And so, and same goes for security, that obviously we knew that there were dangerous situations that could present themselves towards vulnerable communities that have been displaced a number of times, and so everybody did their utmost to try and create a safe location. But the reality is, a problem of this magnitude, a population of this size, it can't be managed or facilitated in any way by a bunch of volunteers, a bunch of people who live around the park. And so everybody did their absolute best, and everybody worked around the clock, sometimes literally around the clock. Either whether it was, sitting in front of a computer and doing advocacy and sending emails, or it was manning the medic tent and, providing care for people that needed it, people who needed it the most. And yeah, so everybody really did what they could, and everybody gave it their all, and the government did nothing until they felt like, it was something that they didn't want to see anymore, and then they got rid of it.
Real quick, what is a viable solution that you think could be had? Obviously, the government has the resources and the abilities. Do do you think what are some steps that the government could take locally, or because I know they tried, right? Like Angela County pushed the commission to the county to try to get people into hotels, but it wasn't everybody. It was like a select few, and so they've tried to do these little maneuvers, but it obviously has not impacted the full amount of houseless folks that there are. And so, you having worked with this situation for however long you have in these last only a month or so, right? And so
just last few weeks.
Yeah. And so, but just being immersed in this, what is your ideas of maybe the pathway forward?
Unfortunately, it's going to take a coordinated effort from government on a number of levels. I think that the ideas are all there, whether it's midterm or medium term to long term housing solutions like tiny houses, like investing in the refurbishing of existing buildings. I mean, there are the downtown office buildings are maybe pre-COVID at 50% capacity, and now damn near empty. And so, thinking about getting creative about those kind of solutions, and people say that a lot, getting creative, but it's, it really doesn't take a lot of creativity. You basically just have to assess the landscape, see the resources that you have, whether it's existing structures, whether it's, city planners, whether it's, incentivizing and subsidizing construction companies and architectural firms and things like that, to come up with plans. You're telling me that, our government, full of lawyers, people with PhDs, people with doctorates, they can't come up with some way, to house 10,000 more people. I mean, this is a city of, 600,000 people. 10,000 people can't find residence anywhere, with all the resources that the government has. I think it's pretty ridiculous. So there's that. I mean, and then there's also, the considerations that, not everybody is in a stable place in their life, that in such a stable place in their life that they can, exist in traditional housing. And so, when you talk about treatment, the models are out there. I was just having a conversation before we linked up to someone who was referencing like the harm reduction that goes on in the Netherlands. The way that they provide free drugs to people, they provide safe spaces, they provide as many resources as they need to stay safe, while also making all the resources available that are needed for people to overcome the things that they're struggling with if they're ready and they're able. The idea that either you come all the way to us and figure yourself out, and then you'll get some small peanuts as far as resources is ridiculous. And to think that could be effective at all is just ludicrous. And so I personally, and I know that this is a radical idea, but I think that, the way that we have gun buyback programs when, gun laws change throughout the world or in our country, I think that a similar approach needs to be taken for drugs. I think that drugs need to be decriminalized and they need to be bought back, because the reality is dealing drugs is a crime of necessity. Nobody's dealing drugs because they want to be or because they think it's fun. It's extremely dangerous. Not to pretend like I understand all the problems of the communities that I'm speaking about right now, but the reality is, if we're going to find a solution for this, nobody can be left out of the picture. And so the idea of buying drugs back from drug dealers, and maybe that giving them the opportunities and the resources in that way to reinvest in their communities, to start businesses of their own, to do whatever they will, to go back to school, to offer job training, things like that. Letting those things go hand in hand, treatment, job training, and housing. Getting culturally appropriate solutions. I mean, the ideas are out there. It's not that hard. But the reality is the volunteers can't go out and build that shit. The government has to invest in it, and they have to be the ones that do it. Period.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I know you're in the middle of doing stuff. Any last words you'd want to say?
There's a lot of words that I'd like to say to our governor, to our city council people, to our mayor. Those are really the only people that I have words for at this point. Other than that, it's all about action. And so, if my actions take me face to face with them, then I'll give them those words then.
All right. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
appreciate your time.
Of course.
My name is Nico.
Nico, thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thanks
you
for being here.
Let me give you one of the cards, too.
For sure.
Thanks for all your work.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Gentlemen. All right, we'll give a quick synopsis and then we'll bring the stream down. I think that last interview sort of wrapped up a lot of the situation. Hopefully you all are sort of understanding what happened out here. It's pretty complex, and the fact that it all happened within a very short, brief period of time, about a month and a half, 2 months. And from the situation here, where basically houselessness was a crime, to a place where it was a sanctuary to have tents in parks, and now one side has been evicted. So again, the temporary, or the 72-hour eviction order was given away on Friday. The police carried it out today, this afternoon. You see spots where there were tents. They are no longer tents. Over about a dozen people were arrested here. Some defenders defending the tents. That is the West encampment in Powderhorn. That's still operational. They will probably get an eviction order. Maybe. We did hear from one person. We'll try to get to the bottom of that. We did hear from one person about how the authorities are allowing for people to get a permit, but that permit makes one person responsible for what happens. And so, from my understanding, is there were some organizers that had signed up for the permit, and that allowed those tents to stay. Now it looks like there's over 25 tents, so it's going to be hard to figure out what their next moves are without specifically knowing. We did hear about the park board. Some of the members in the park board, like Londell French, I know that he's been up here consistently, like throwing down, putting in effort to help people. So not all park board members were the ones that were trying to make this only 25 tents and evict everybody else. So that is the West encampment. This is the East that is now gone. Today there was an eviction carried out by the Minneapolis Police, the Park Police, as well as a third-party company, from my understanding. We'll try to also get to the bottom of that. The eviction happened, about a dozen people were arrested, and people have been moved out of the east side of Powderhorn Park. The future for houselessness, we heard from people today some solution ideas. Mostly, we are not there with no political will. The political will was there to allow for people to be here in sanctuary, but the political will seems to have lost. You start to wonder about the political posturing that's happened in our city. You start to wonder if defunding the police or disbanding the police is just terms that they're utilizing to take advantage of the political happenings and the political where we are in the city, policy-wise and politically. So coming off of the George Floyd uprising, a lot of things were being reimagined, one of those being a place where houseless can actually live and not to have to worry about being re-traumatized by the society that probably has created a lot of trauma for a lot of people in this country. And so you see people are picking up. Those are volunteers from the community that have created a whole bunch of community out here. They're continuing to work. There's tons of houseless folks here in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. There's going to be tons more. Coronavirus is not stopping, and not only, hello, how are you? Where am I from? Unicorn Riot.
Unicorn Riot.
Yeah, let me give you one of our cards. Here's a card. You want it? Yeah. So, well, thank you all for joining. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. We will continue to try to bring events like this to you live, as well as bring more information about them in the back end. There goes Fancy Ray. Fancy Ray is on those commercials. If you're from Minneapolis, you know about Fancy Ray. And Fancy Ray also has a shop named after him. I don't know if it's his own shop, but it's right by where the precinct got set on fire, 2-3 blocks away. So anyways, this Powderhorn Park eviction happened. We'll try to get a smaller video and a little bit more context to around this a little bit later in the next day or two. Well, the next days, I should say. The plates are pretty full. But again, thank you all for joining. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. Thank you for the back end, Chris and Dan. We'll bring the stream down. If you like our content, we are a 501c3 educational nonprofit. We bring context to social and environmental struggles, as well as spotlighting alternatives and community-run events. We are horizontally organized and we have no bosses. We all donations given to us are tax deductible, and they're accepted and brought into our general operating fund. And the general operating is voted. All of our monies is voted consensusly by our organization. So any donation you give will definitely not be going into our pockets right off bat. Would be going into the general operating funds, allowing our organization to build for the next foreseeable future. So thank you all for joining and for supporting. Your support has allowed us incredible and humbling feelings. So unicornriot.ninja is the website. /donate is the donate, but here's the donate page if you have the financial privilege to give monies at this time. We are on Twitter, UR_ninja. We're on Instagram, unicorn.riot, YouTube, Vimeo, and check out our website, unicornriot.ninja. Again, thank you all for joining. We're on the south side of Minneapolis at Powderhorn Park, east side encampment. It has now been taken apart and evicted. Check out Minneapolis Park Sanctuary, I believe, on Facebook. And they have much more information about the organizing behind this and the eviction. Again, thank you all for joining. Nico signing out. UnicornRiot.ninja is our website. Peace, peace. Have a good day, you all. Appreciate that.
I'm Micah.
I'm Nico.
I've seen you online.
Word. Thanks for the compliment. Oh, no way?